Simplifying data mainly consists of field settings, removing duplicate rows, and handling null values. Field settings are quite simple. Let's take a look at what can be done. First, we can click this icon to modify the field type, changing it to text, number, or date. We can also double-click the field to rename it. Additionally, we can drag two cells to adjust the field order. If we uncheck it, we can hide the field. Here's a small tip: many of these operations do not necessarily need to be adjusted in the settings area above. In the preview area's header, you can often interact directly. You can explore this yourself. The second function is removing duplicate rows, which is a common issue in business. Let me explain the deduplication logic in FindBI. Once you grasp the logic, you can flexibly decide how to set it based on your business scenario. In a nutshell, the logic is to retain the first row based on the deduplication field. What does this mean? Let's take a look at an example. Suppose I only select name as the deduplication field. If there are two rows with the name Li Ming, we retain the first one by default. If there are two rows with Zhao Lei on July 2nd, we also retain the first one. The row that appears first in the preview is the one that will be retained. You should verify whether this retention meets your requirements. Notice that Li Ming has one in class 1 and another in class 2. This actually refers to two different people with the same name, which is normal, right? They might even have different English scores. So, in this case, we are removing something that shouldn't be deduplicated. What should we do then? We should choose the correct deduplication fields, which should be both class and name. When both are selected, Class 1 Li Ming and Class 2 Li Ming will be treated as two different entries, and the system will retain both rows. So, you should choose the correct deduplication fields based on your business scenario, whether single or multiple selections. Lastly, let's look at the scenario of removing null values. I say scenario because we don't have a specific function for this. Why? Because there are many ways to handle null values, and sometimes it may not even be necessary to remove them. Here are 3 common scenarios or examples, which I suggest as guidelines. The first is to ignore null values. However, some people might ask, isn't that problematic? Let me give an example. Suppose your dataset has millions of rows, but only 2 or 3 rows are empty. If you calculate the average, does including those empty values affect the result much? Probably not. In summary, if those null values do not significantly affect your analysis or conclusions, it might be fine to leave them. Of course, you can be more rigorous and explain the logic in your analysis report, mentioning why you left those null values. This will make it clearer to others. The second scenario is when the null values significantly impact your analysis. For example, if the second row has a null name, and you're calculating the class average, this row can greatly affect the result. If you need to find the student who scored 99 points, and this row is missing, the analysis becomes impossible. Also, even if you don't know why, the data in that row is meaningless for your analysis. In this case, you can filter out those rows with null names and remove them. The third situation is when the null value seriously impacts the analysis, but it also has business meaning, and you can't just remove it. For example, Sumin's English score is empty in the third row. But can I just say, we'll remove Sumin from my class? Of course not. This would leave her off the grade report. Why? Because Sumin might have missed the exam due to illness. In this case, we recommend tagging the missing score. You can mark it as missed exam. Later, in the dashboard, you can filter and compare students who took the exam and those who missed it. The average scores will vary based on the filters you apply. Performing a slice analysis would be better in this case. Finally, let me summarize the key points of the first section regarding adjusting and simplifying data structures. Please keep these in mind.